The first 6 months that I lived here, I cried every day
Mhm.
because it was so overwhelming, like how much trauma there was with
Yeah,
the children. Every time you meet this beautiful little human being and you hear their story, it's like every single time, it takes you back again, like how people could hurt them in that way.
right, right.
And every time I would travel out into the village, I would just be like, there's so much need. I see so much need. There's so much need
So
everywhere.
overwhelming.
And the Lord had to speak to me because I was like, this isn't right that every day I'm just a wreck. Like, I'm not going to be able to do anything. And I need to do a lot here. And he just spoke to me and said, do whatever I've put in your hands. And if I
Mm.
put it in your hands, I will also give you the strength and capacity to do it.
Welcome to Take Back My Brain with Laurie Hammer, where real healing starts in the brain. I'm Laurie, a functional nutritionist and mom who's walked the path from anxiety and burnout to clarity and calm. Each week, we're going to dive into brain-based tools like amino acid therapy, gut health, fasting, and faith to help you reclaim your energy, emotions, and sense of self. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to Take Back My Brain. Today, we are stepping into some faith and healing and fierce, fierce love. So I am joined by the incredible Bethany Frazier of What Matters Ministries and pastor at Casa Angelina Orphanage in Guatemala. Bethany has devoted her life to rescuing, restoring, and raising up children who have survived unspeakable trauma, and she's seen God move in amazing ways that will leave you breathless. So today she's going to share her story, her mission, and the healing love of our first love, Jesus. So, Bethany, thank you for being on the podcast. I am so excited you are here.
Thank you so much, Lori, for having me. This is a privilege, and to speak to all your audience, say hello to everybody, and just to say, I love what you just said, that He's our first love, because when God is the first love in your life, you give Him access to all the parts of you. And
Mm.
when you give Him access to all the parts of you, He can heal you. And everything in life, literally in this world, is something where it requires something from you. And there's so much giving we do on a daily basis to our family, to our friends, at our work
Mhm.
and job, wherever you go. And it's incredible how many ways there are that we have to give. And yet the restoring of our soul is what the Holy Spirit does the best, what God does the best in our life. And if we don't have enough of that time, then we can give out of an empty place, and then we
Mm.
feel brokenness come back again. And so I just love that you said that just to start already this time that we're talking. And thank you again for having me.
Oh, it's so great to have you on today. I have to know and those of you who don't know, which most of you don't, my assistant, Ginger, is actually down with Bethany right now at the orphanage. And so she's the one who kind of connected us together. So I have to know, I don't know much about your ministry. So tell us, what is What Matters Ministry and how this all began for you?
Okay. So, What Matters Ministries and Missions is a nonprofit, a 501(c)(3) located in the United States of America. And it's a ministry that my parents founded a long time ago. My parents have been in ministry now 41 years. So
Wow.
they founded this ministry a long time ago. And it started just with them traveling and preaching. And as that grew, they literally miraculously, it was like a miracle story, got a trailer home, moved with us. Myself and my youngest sister was just a little baby, and then more babies came along the way. But just traveling around the United States in a trailer home and preaching and ministering and that kind of thing. That then developed into them pastoring in Texas and then doing missions work out of that. So I grew up from a
Wow.
very young age traveling to different countries, and we would take teams from different churches or different schools, businesses, all sorts of things. They'd raise money, and we would take them to contacts we had in a lot of different countries, and we would build orphanages, build Bible schools, build churches, build hospitals, and leave it for the people who did the ministry there. And
Hmm.
over the years, we really began to feel the Lord was calling us to do our own orphanage, and just waited for Him to really sink into our hearts where that was going to be. And He first spoke it to my dad, um, and told him that He wanted him to do an orphanage in Guatemala. And so we began at that time, that was 2003, and we began to look for property here in Guatemala. My husband and I were working in the office, and I was working as the CFO for the ministry, and we were just working and doing and taking people places and all that. And when we found this land, it was really beautiful actually, because on that trip, my dad was alone, and it was just like one hillside. There was nothing convenient about this land. There was no paved road. There was no electricity, even in the closest village. There was nothing. But when he walked onto the property, he heard children singing, and he heard the Lord say to him, "I'm going to heal children here."
Mm.
And that was the beginning of it. He called me from the property. I'll never forget that phone call. And he said, "I found it. This is it." And he was crying. And I said, "Well, how much does it cost?" And he was like, and we didn't have a dollar for it, but within 24 hours, we had all the money and purchased the land. So that is how it began. And that was December of 2003.
Wow.
Mhm.
That is amazing. So, when things like happen like that, that God's going to do some crazy stuff.
Oh yeah, he is for sure. And the ministry we have 5 pillars to the ministry. So we do work in the United States. We do the work we do here. Our missions branches are here in Guatemala and then also in Kenya, Africa.
Hmm.
And so those are the main places that we work with missions internationally. But our 5 pillars are rescue orphans, help widows, feed the poor, build the local church, and win souls around the world. So, between those 5 things, that sums up really everything we do in the main countries that we work in. We still do take teams and go to different countries and do things now and then for other ministries also that we have very established relationships with.
Hmm.
And I'll be traveling actually to England in December this year and doing stuff over there. So, but mainly the biggest part of our ministry is Casa Angelina here in Guatemala, where I'm talking to you from.
That's amazing. So you've seen God move in incredible ways over the years.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
what are some of the biggest or best moments that you can think of that there was healing, physical, emotional, whatever it might be that stands out to you?
Okay. Okay. How many stories do you want, Lori? That's the real question. Okay, I'll just go with the first ones that are on my mind. Um, and this is probably why I believe that God is a healer, is because of the first miracle that I saw when I was 9. And we were in Mexico and we were praying over people in a little church. I didn't speak Spanish. And of course, I was a little girl, and my dad spoke Spanish and he was preaching in Spanish. And it was a beautiful service, but it was a tiny, like, little church. And it was made out of recycled sort of wood that had holes all in it. And the floor was dirt. And we were sitting on the dirt. And I remember that I just knew he did healing because all these sick people started coming up. And there was a lady who walked up and she had a humpback and she had a cane. And so she was almost literally vertical like that. And it had been a long time. She was really, I think at the end, they told me she was 86 years old and she had had this for over 50 years of her life.
Wow.
So she's walking up to the front to pray for healing. And I had always been raised to pray and minister with my dad. So I got up and I walked up to her and I'm ready to pray for her. And of course, I didn't know Spanish. So I was speaking in tongues at the time. And
Mhm.
I just laid my hands on her back and just started speaking in tongues over her body. And I felt while my eyes were closed, the hump go down under my hands.
Amen.
And when I opened my eyes, she looked at me and she stood up straight through the cane. And of course, I have no idea what she said, but it was a lot of joyous words in Spanish at that time. Of course, I speak Spanish now, but and we began to jump and scream, and the whole church just screamed, and it was revival. That church later ended up having massive revival in the whole village, and thousands of people ended up coming. The church expanded. It was huge, but it was the first time I will never forget the feeling of the hump going down under my hands.
Yeah.
Last week, I just had 2 miracles when we were just ministering, and there was a young boy who came up, and his mom brought him up for prayer, and he had all crooked teeth, and she was praying for healing in his teeth, and his teeth straightened like shoom, just like that. Another man, he was totally deaf in an ear. I had 21 people that were deaf, and God just opened ears one by one by one by one by one. We've
Wow.
seen with the beautiful children here at Casa Angelina multiple incredible miracles. We had a girl that came here when she was 3 and she had spina bifida. And they had put her on a really heavy duty medication that as a 3-year-old, I mean, she wasn't even able to play. Like she was so drugged.
Wow.
It was very, very, very difficult. And when I saw her, I heard the Holy Spirit say that he was going to heal her. And so we anointed her with oil. We prayed over her little body. And I really believe that with intense, of course, we had a lot of medical supervision and our doctors and our nurses were there, but that we needed to stop the medication because she was not even able to hardly respond. And
Hmm.
sometimes, of course, we are in a third world country, and sometimes they do use medicines that are not appropriate for the age of the
Sure.
person or just many different situations. And so we waited 3 weeks with like very careful observation and took her back to the doctor 3 weeks later. They did all the tests again and they could not find any signs of spina bifida in her body. And to this day, now she's
Amen.
17 and I mean, never had a sign of anything ever. So another one. I have many, many more, but those are a few.
Oh my goodness. That makes my heart so happy. Makes my heart so happy. So thank you for
It's
sharing those.
incredible.
Um, you have this orphanage down there. And
Yes.
so how do children come to you? What are their situations, you
Mhm.
know?
So 100% of the children that we have are through we get them through the judges. So the judges have social workers and those social workers are sent out into the villages or into the cities and sorry, there's a little fly. And they're sent into those areas and to look for any cases that have been brought before the police. So let's say that you're a neighbor, you hear children screaming next door, you go to the local police, you say, "I'm here to put in a report that I've heard this at this house." Now, again, we're talking not like anything looks in the United States. It's not like houses with numbers
Right.
or streets with names. It's just locations, right? So you just say that I heard this, it didn't sound okay. Can you investigate? This could never be investigated, or it could be investigated.
Wow.
And so, in the cases where there is an investigation and the judge will send a social worker into the area, they see what's happening to the children, and then they remove the children from the home with police there with them. And they take them to the judge, and then the judge interviews the children, sees what's happening, and then calls an orphanage and puts the children in the home. There are only 14 judges in the entire country of Guatemala who actually deal with children's cases. 14. And UNICEF's last number was a little over 500,000 children still on the streets of Guatemala. So
Wow.
there's an epidemic of children who have
Right.
been badly abused, are completely abandoned, and are living and surviving on their own. And so it's um it's a very tragic situation. Every time we receive a child, have been 100% abandoned. Most of them have been either living on the street or surviving in some capacity on their own. Just 2 days ago, we received a little boy. His mother works in prostitution, and she's also an alcoholic. So she either brought him with her on the street where he suffered all types of different abuse. And then when she tried to leave him with someone, she left him with the grandma, but the grandma has her own vices that she is also has. And so she left him in a dog, I'm going to say kennel, but it's not really a kennel. It's just an area where they house about 17 dogs. And that's where he slept and lived. So in one of those occasions, his eye was actually bitten out by a dog. So we just received him 2 days ago, and I see him, and he's like, I mean, he's missing an eye. He's got all sorts of skin diseases, rashes. I mean, he's been living with animals who have fleas, who have bite him. It's been a really horrible situation, and we just got him 2 days ago. So the first thing we do when a child comes into Casa Angelina is we have our own medical clinic here as well. And so we do a whole scan of everything, blood work, urine, feces. We check with an ultrasound all their organs. We do everything. We got his beautiful two little sisters. One was 6 and one was 8. And I noticed when they came in that the 6-year-old was just walking strangely. This could be because of abuse they've suffered. This could be an accident that happened. We never know. But we have an amazing x-ray machine as well. And so we did an x-ray of her legs and found that her femur was actually broken in two. And she was walking on it still, or trying to walk
Wow.
on it. And
Wow.
she had fallen and had a really bad accident and had told her mother about it, but her mother was involved in a lot of her own situations. And so she never helped her. And when we were getting her casted and the cast put on her leg, she was crying with joy. The whole time she just kept saying, I'm not going to feel pain anymore. I'm not going to feel pain
Oh,
anymore. And it just broke my heart thinking, and every time a child comes, because they've been in survival mode, they're not complainers, they
right.
come and they might have a tooth falling out, they might have extreme pain in an area, and they haven't told anyone about it. So the first thing we do is do a full medical checkup on everybody to see what it is that really is going on in their bodies and how we can help.
Wow. That's amazing. So most of these kids, their parents are they still alive? They just happen to be in situations where they can't care for these kids.
I would say, I'm going to say a
I mean,
percentage,
500,000
maybe.
children is a lot.
It is a lot. But a lot of the reason of that is because you have women who, a lot of people, they don't get married, so they make a unit, a partnership together. They have children. He leaves her. The next man doesn't want those children, so she leaves them on the street, and she makes another
Wow.
family basically with him. If he leaves, she leaves him on the street and she makes a new family with the next one. That is the most common thing that happens here. And
Wow.
that's why there are so many children that are not in families. And so the children that we have, we usually take children anywhere from brand new babies that have been left on steps, and that is a very common occurrence here. About a month ago, we had a little baby brought to us that was abandoned at a fire station.
Hmm.
And so we brought him in and raised him and all that. And then eventually they found someone that was family. And so they did send him to them. But it just depends on the situation. So most of our kids are permanent, meaning that they have no family members that can take care of them. That's either because they don't have any parents that are living or don't have anyone that is actually able to take care of
Able.
them, who hasn't abused them already.
Right.
Over 90% of our children have been severely sexually abused as well. So it's a mix of all that. So some of them might have parents, but they might be their abusers, and therefore they're not allowed to live with them.
Right.
Mhm.
So how long do you keep the children? Are they up for
Yeah.
adoption? How does that work?
We are the only orphanage in Guatemala who doesn't age out children. So once they turn 18, they don't have to leave. We actually are a high education orphanage. So all the children, once they graduate what would be the equivalent of high school, they also go on to university then or to trade school.
Wow.
So we offer that to all of the children if they want it. And if they don't have to do it. They can get a job and live life and do whatever they like to do. But if they want to do it, we offer that to them. So we have 43 in university right now, and those are universities all over Guatemala. We did have one that actually was invited to study in Spain and went to Madrid for a year, and that was an amazing experience for her. And so many different situations, but we have all different ages because of that reason. So
Wow.
they don't age out. Yeah,
Yeah. How many
they
children do you have there?
175 at the moment.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's incredible.
176 with a little boy who came 2 days ago. So yes, and those
Mm.
are all different ages. And again, it's just really miraculous. We're still young enough because we did buy the land, like I mentioned, in December of 2003, but we didn't get children until mid to the end of 2005, just because of the fact that we had to do all the paperwork and become certified as an orphanage and all those kind of things, build the first house, all of that. And so we're still young enough that our children, we haven't had anyone yet that's graduated college and gone on to do something with that yet. But in the next like 2 years, I do have multiple that are going to do that. So
Are you so
it's very
excited?
exciting. Oh my
Oh,
goodness. I'm planning the biggest party you can ever imagine. We're going to celebrate them huge. It's going to be huge because
yeah.
it's so inspirational to the other children. So none of the children that we have ever had family that graduated high school or
Sure.
finished school ever. So they're the first generation to ever do that.
Wow.
And the first generation in most of their families, over 90% of the children are the first to ever read in their or write in their families. So it's just incredible.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So being in this third world country and doing that for all of these children, do you see that ripple effect going out, or is it kind of just
Yes.
confined into your orphanage?
No, absolutely. It's going out. It's all for going out. All of them, when the children come, their hands are empty and they need so much because everything they should have had been taken away from them.
Right.
But when they come to Casa Angelina, God fills their hands. And
Mm.
when he fills us with something, we have to give it, which I imagine, I don't know your story, Lori, either, but I imagine something happened in your life and you said, I have to help people with
Yes.
what I now know. And that's what happens is God fills our hands and then we go, who can I give this to that I can also share this with? One of the ways that Casa Angelina does that now and that the children help us with while they're here at Casa Angelina is with our widows program. So we go into the villages up to an hour distance away in a circumference of about an hour away from Casa Angelina. And we go into those villages, talk to the mayors of the village, talk to the people in the village, and learn where there are widows and widowers that have no family and no one taking care of them. And I mean, these are ladies and gentlemen who live in homes made out of trash, who live in homes made out of sticks, out of mud, dried mud. They live out of what they call lamina here, which is just like sheet metal. Just homes that are not really homes. Dried corn stalks is one of the most common type of home.
Wow.
And then they're living in that type of a house and they don't have food to eat every day. And we come in and we build them a home and we adopt them into the Casa Angelina family. And we give them food and medical care until they transition and go to heaven. I don't know if we have time for this if I tell you one more story,
We
but the
do.
very
Go
first
ahead.
widow.
Hmm.
Okay, so the very first widow that this is a beautiful story of how it went from this point on to now we've built 178 homes, 179 counting tomorrow, once I dedicate the next home that's coming up tomorrow that the team is building. But when we were walking through this village that we're in now, where Casa Angelina is in, looking for our very first widow. And we walk around the corner, and my dad was first in the line, and he walks around the corner, and this lady comes out with her hands raised like this, running towards us. And she says, "You're here to help me. You're here to help me." And we were like, who is this lady? And she said, my name is Ilaria. And she said, 3 days ago, I had nothing to eat. And I saw you in a vision. And God said, these people are coming to build you a home and you'll never lack food again. And that was our very first widow. And she hadn't, I mean, she would have, we didn't tell anyone we were going out. We didn't know 3 days ago we were going to go walking through the village. And yet we found her and she started it. And she went to heaven at the age of 98 and was a person that greatly impacted my life and everyone who met her, honestly, and all of Casa Angelina. And I took so many teams to meet her because I was like, you need to see this woman because she's a woman of faith and she's not famous on earth. And many people, it's not like she can say thousands of people have seen me or heard my story, but I have probably never in my life met anyone who loved Jesus more or waited for him longer to answer prayers than her without losing her faith. And it just she always made me think about Abraham and
Mm.
how he waited so long for a promise. But yet the word says that he never doubted that it would happen.
Right.
He didn't consider the deadness of his body or the deadness of Sarah's womb, the word says, but that he always believed in faith that it would happen. And because he believed that, it happened.
Right.
And I think it's an incredible lesson to anyone who is, especially anyone who's sick or suffering any kind of ailment in their body or any kind of mental sickness or anything that is just not right in your body, to hold out for that promise that God who created you, who knows you better than anyone else, has a perfect plan for you. And that there are things that we can do, right, to help and to heal and to
Hmm.
do all of that because it's a very toxic world in so many ways.
Sure.
But God wants to partner with your efforts and your work and what you're doing and bring something supernatural to that as well. And I think
Amen.
that's a beautiful thing.
It is
So,
a beautiful thing. Working in all of this and seeing all of the
mhm.
tragedy, the trauma, everything, how's that affected you, your faith, and how you just look at life?
The first 6 months that I lived here, I cried every day
Hmm.
because it was so overwhelming, like how much trauma there was with
Yeah.
the children. Every time you meet this beautiful little human being, and you hear their story, it's like every single time, it takes you back again, like how people could hurt them in that way.
Right. Right.
And every time I would travel out into the village, I would just be like, there's so much need. I see so much need. There's so much need
So
everywhere.
overwhelming.
And the Lord had to speak to me because I was like, this isn't right that every day I'm just a wreck. Like, I'm not going to be able to do anything. And I need to do a lot here. And he just spoke to me and said, do whatever I've put in your hands. And if I
Mm,
put it in your hands, I will also give you the strength and capacity to do it. So I just started saying, okay, what's in my hands today, right now, whether it's this child, this life, this widow, this situation, this building, this project, whatever it is that's in my hand right now, I just have to do that the best that I can. And God expanded and has continued to expand the ministry so much, but
wow.
it took away the anxiety, I guess you could say, that could come with seeing so much
Right.
and knowing you don't have what it takes to answer all the needs. And, God does know all the needs, and yet he's still patient and long suffering and merciful and kind. And so I thought, okay, if he knows everything, it's all right. He knows everything.
Yes.
There is somebody who knows
Yes.
it all. And so I can be more at peace. And that really helped me for these 15 years that I've been here. And I traveled back and
Amazing.
forth at the beginning when we first started Casa Angelina and then moved here 15 years ago.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's amazing, Bethany. I mean, so often I love how you say that. What was that woman's name that died at 98?
Ilaria.
Eladia, that she just waited and she was expectant and she never was stagnant in her faith, right?
Yep.
Um, I think in the United States, we're so like, we want it now, 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 now. And if it doesn't
Yeah.
happen, then there must be something that we're doing wrong. My prayers aren't effective, or God isn't hearing me, or I don't have enough faith, all those kind of things. And I imagine the woman who was bent over, where you put your hands on her, how long she had, wait, you said 50
Yeah.
years. She's been
50
like
years.
50
Hmm.
years. And to all of a sudden be free from that. Um, we just get so impatient with God. And I'm assuming that you've learned a lot of patience being down there.
Yeah. Yeah. I would definitely say waiting is not like anybody's strong suit at the beginning of their
Mhm.
life, probably. I mean,
No.
children don't want to wait for anything either. Babies don't want to wait for anything. That's why your baby cries. We start out very impatient, honestly. And I think that is the work of the Holy Spirit in our lives to make us patient and willing to wait for the promise. Everybody in the Bible had to wait for a promise, pretty
Right.
much.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you talk about the healings, and we talk, well, when you see Jesus's ministry and you study his ministry and you think about the man at the pool of Bethesda, or there's so many different stories, they all were waiting.
Hmm.
Like, blind Bartimaeus, everybody was waiting. They had been that way for a while, and then Jesus passed by. And this is the amazing thing about inviting Jesus into your life, because when Jesus enters your life and we give room for Jesus in our life, those miracles begin to work in our life. And so all these stories we have of healings, it's because Jesus came into he was now a part of their reality. And when Jesus walks into the room, or when Jesus walks into your heart, or Jesus walks into your home, things are going to change and they're
Yeah.
going to reflect him more. And so stuff starts to just begin to switch around, and things that were impossible before become possible again. And so I think, such a beautiful, beautiful part of Casa Angelina and the waiting journey that we have is just that we're always waiting with expectancy. And that's what I call faith, is it's waiting in a position where you're leaning forward. When you're like, okay, Jesus, if you're here, or what do you want me to do? What do you want me to say? How do you want me to handle this in my life, in my family, with my children, with my coworkers, at my church, with my sisters, brothers, mother, father? How do you want me to handle this? What do you want me to do? There's a willingness to wait, and then there's a leaning in expectancy and faith, saying, I know you can do it. Even
Right.
if I have to wait, I know you can do it. And definitely a patience I've had to learn. And I always pray for more patience so that I don't make hurried decisions, or I don't run forward on something if it's not the right timing, because you want the timing of the Lord in what
Right.
in what you're doing, especially when there are so many people here that look to me for an answer for something. I just want to know that the timing is right. And so I'm okay. I think one of the things I've had to learn is being okay with saying no to things that even seem like opportunities when
Hmm.
it doesn't feel like there's not peace around it. I'm like,
Right.
maybe that's an opportunity for the future. I don't know. It doesn't feel right now. And
Hmm.
being okay with that too. And then all of those things that I've ever had to say that to have always come back around, literally like triple better than they would have been if I had done it at the start. So it's
Yeah.
just, you know, patience and waiting, absolutely, Lori, are something that I
Yep.
have to practice daily.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like all of us for sure. So we talked
Yes.
about two of your pillars, the orphans, the widows, and then what are your other three pillars?
Feeding the poor, building the local church, and winning souls around the world. So, feeding the poor, we do that here, obviously, in many capacities. The kids also go into the villages. We do feeding programs in the villages where our teenagers and our, like, basically 10-year-olds and up will go into the villages and they offer to cut hair for the
Wow.
kids. They offer to pray for people. They take food to people. It's all of that, but also extension of our ministry. What we do in Kenya and Africa is we have a very large feeding center in the middle of the slums of Nakuru, Kenya,
Wow.
and we're feeding every day. We feed approximately 1,600 children a day. And then we also open the center for all these children to come. And the center has been really small. We just built a new building there, actually, that got finished last month. But just through the one center we have, there's about 200 children that stay there every single day just to get off of the streets. And then a lot of other ones who go to school. It's actually free to go to school in Kenya if you have a uniform,
Hmm.
but you can't eat lunch at lunchtime. So these kids come from the slums and they have uniforms that have been passed down or that they found in the trash dumps, and they're able to go somewhere to get off of the street because there's a lot of drugs and a lot of crime in
Okay.
the streets. So they go to school. And then we build kitchens, what we call What Matters kitchens, in those schools. So the children, before we come, because they can't afford to pay for anything, they don't eat lunch. So a lot of these schools have children fainting often during recess. Recesses are like silent; they're like quiet places because the kids don't
Wow.
have energy to play. So we build a kitchen and we feed all these children. So at one school alone, we feed 800 children lunch every day, and it's the only meal that they eat. But now they're able to start doing testing again in the school, and they're taking exams, which allows them to go to college afterwards. We have
Right.
17 in college in Kenya for the very first year ever, which is
Wow.
amazing. So that's part of the feeding the poor portion. We have a church here that we run outside of Casa Angelina. We have a church in Kenya that's open to all the slums. And so, oh my gosh, there's so many miracles. I could tell you so many testimonies just from that one.
Wow.
And I go there usually once a year. And everything else I do like this, video calls
Uh-huh.
and stuff like that, and talk with them weekly. And I have video cameras there actually so I can see the project and the kids and everything as well. But we also, my dad, Ivan Tate, is my father, and he travels and ministers in local churches in the United States. I would say out of the 52 weeks of the year, he probably travels 48 weeks of the year. So he's in a different church every weekend. And I travel back about 10 times a year as well, just to do that on weekends and preach in different churches, and winning souls is part of that. So that's building the local church, because honestly, we
Yeah.
are the body of Christ. Like, all of us represent the
Yeah.
body of Christ. And so investing into churches and ministering to people and loving on people and also telling people about this. I remember when I was very young, my dad said, Bethany, you don't want to get to heaven and not know the name of an orphan and not know the name of a widow. When God said in James 1:27 that pure and undefiled religion is this, to care for orphans and widows in their need and to keep yourself unspotted from the world. And he was like, do not get to heaven. And, whatever you do in life, whatever you decide to do, don't get to heaven and not know the name of an orphan or a widow, when that's what the Lord said matters so much to him. And
Right.
that stuck with me majorly. And of
Yeah.
course, it's what I do. I know a lot of names of orphans and widows now, but I love connecting people to orphans and widows and
Yes.
the poor, because I feel like it's not your fault. Wherever you were born is where you're born. You
Mm-hmm.
may be born in the most affluent area in the United States of America or in a first world country. It's not like that's a crime. That's a
Right.
blessing. That can be a
Yes.
wonderful thing in your life. But you still need to know the name of an orphan and a widow, and you need to be
Amen.
helping those who cannot pay you back,
Yeah.
because it keeps us, we believe, it keeps us unspotted from the world. It cleans the soul.
Yeah.
So it's something that when nobody gives you back something, you go, well, check my motives again. Does it
Mm-hmm.
matter to me that they give me back when I give them? Or am I just giving because that's the heart of Jesus, was to give? So,
Amen.
yeah.
I mean, how do people find you? How do they give? How do they connect with your ministry?
Yeah, they can check us out online if they want to on our website, which is www.whatmattersmm.org. Whatmattersmm.org. And the MM is for ministries and missions. So, yeah, we would be love to answer any questions. There's phone numbers on there. There's videos on there. They can go to YouTube also and go to the What Matters Ministries and Missions page. They'll see videos of Casa Angelina. They can also look for Casa Angelina on the internet. They'll see videos that'll come up, and they can see what we're doing through those videos, hear testimonies of children, all sorts of different things.
Mm. I, wow. It's amazing. I could listen to you tell stories all day for one, because people need
Uh,
to hear those miracle stories. They need to know that God is still moving, because I think here in the United States, we forget that he's moving. We don't see it in the local church. So much stagnancy is around us, but there's still a
Mhm.
lot of revival and stuff going on too. So thank you. Can you
Yeah.
leave us with like one final story? Just
Yes, for sure. Oh my goodness, one final story. Okay. So we have a little boy. I just saw him in the street. So he's the first one that's on my mind right now, walking in the street. But his name is Mateo. And I just shared this testimony, I think the day before yesterday. But he came at the age of 5 and he was totally mute. He had never spoken in his life. He came with his sister Valeska. And when I met them at the gate and he walked in the gate, I just really felt like the Lord spoke to me and said he was going to open his mouth to speak for the glory of God. And so I took his little hand, and while they were filling out paperwork, I began to just walk with him and pray over him. And we did a few laps of Casa Angelina, and we have a beautiful soccer field that the Lord provided for the children. And we were walking around the soccer field a couple of laps, and I just heard in my spirit that it was done. So we stopped. We walked back to the front gate. And when we went into the door, his sister handed him a cup of juice, and he reached out for the juice and he said, Gracias. And it was the first word that he ever spoke. And it began a torrent of words. And
wow.
he now talks all the time, and he's in school and he's learning English and he's trying to speak English with people. And he's just such a beautiful example. And I always tell him that he is a miracle. And I tell him in English and Spanish, and he tells me back, I am a miracle in English and Spanish. And I just think about that first word I heard, that it was for the glory of God. And he is such a light, and he blesses everybody who meets him.
Mm.
And I just would probably say, if you feel in any way like comparison, like maybe, there are things or reasons in your life that make you not such a wonderful candidate for God to use to change people's lives and bring the glory of God. I just want to encourage you that that is not true. And that every single person, no matter what has happened in your life, God wants to use you to bring his glory to this earth in one
Amen.
way or another. And you are able to be used by him. So make yourself available and watch some amazing, incredible things God can do, because he really can do it and he will do it.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Bethany. So amazing. Thank you
Thank you
so
for
much.
having me.
Oh my goodness.
Thank
And
you.
if any of you listening have ever doubted that God is still in the miracle business, Bethany and Casa Angelina are so proof of this. So he's so faithful.
Yes.
He binds up the brokenhearted and he redeems everything that looks hopeless. So
Yes, that's right.
all of their information will be in the show notes. So make sure you check them out, whatmattersmm.org, and follow Bethany and Casa Angelina on Instagram so that you can see everything that is going on there. And again, thank you, Bethany. I appreciate all the work you're doing. God bless you and everyone
Thank you.
else. God bless each and every one of you. And I will see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening to Take Back My Brain. If today's episode helped you connect with hope or direction, I want you to follow the show, leave us a review, and share it with someone who needs it. And if you're ready to start your own healing journey, explore our courses and our coaching programs at lauriehammer.com/store. So until next time, remember, you cannot medicate away a nutrient deficiency, and healing your brain isn't just possible, it's powerful.